We're gonna get started. I had mentioned the third panelist is gonna be a couple minutes late, Ms. Daniella Pierre, but she will be joining us shortly. But let's get on with the show then. Good evening and welcome to Feminism Explained's first discussion panel. My name is Olivia Martin-Johnson and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Feminism Explained. Feminism Explained is a monthly newsletter with the intent of addressing the negative connotations associated with the word feminism and aims to educate our readers on modern-day gender inequalities. Before we begin, I'd like to ask each member of the Feminism Explained team to briefly introduce themselves. We'll begin with Christina.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina Aguilar. I am the managing editor of Feminism Explained. I am a junior at Palmer Trinity School, and I'm honored to be here with everyone today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Rivabem, and I'm a co-editor and co-author of Feminism Explained. I'm currently a junior in high school at Gulliver Prep, and I'm so honored to be here with you all today.
Good evening. My name is Rania Ishouf. Currently, I'm a freshman at Gulliver Prep and serve as the marketing manager for our group. I'm so overjoyed to be here tonight.
Hi, my name is Athena Cialis, and I'm a sophomore at Ransom Everglades, and I'm also the media manager of Feminism Explained. I'm really excited to be here with you all.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a junior at Gulliver Prep, and thanks so much for coming.
Great, so thank you all. Again, tonight's panel is titled The Conversation Continues. Although Women's History Month has come and gone, gender inequalities still exist, and we need to continue addressing these issues and discussing possible solutions. Now, our moderators, Elizabeth and Rania, will introduce our esteemed panelists and begin the discussion.
Yes, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Olivia. So as Olivia mentioned, tonight we'll be discussing gender inequalities and continuing that conversation. More specifically, we're going to get to know these three incredible panelists. One of them will be joining us in a few minutes, and what they've done in their careers to support gender rights, understanding inequalities that they may have faced in their career journeys, and examining issues that they may have seen in the workforce in order to build ideas for a more equitable and a more equal future.
To start us off, I'll be introducing Representative Dotie Joseph. Representative Joseph is the state representative for District 108 in Florida's legislature. Committed to serving her community, Ms. Joseph has served as a past president of the Haitian Lawyers Association, first vice chair of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party, a member of the Miami-Dade Black Affairs Advisory Board, a member of the North Miami Board of Adjustment, a volunteer attorney with the NAACP, and as a volunteer election protection attorney for both President Barack Obama's campaigns. In her freshman debut in the Florida legislature, this representative has passed 3 laws in her first session, including one that allows victims of domestic violence to qualify for unemployment compensation and another to celebrate women's suffrage. She has filed legislation to have Florida be the final state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, decrease gun violence, establish paid family leave for new parents, protect our environment, and established equal pay for equal work for women and criminal justice reform.
Next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Monica Skoko Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is the Executive Director for the Commission for Women at Miami-Dade County, the President of the League of Women's Voters in Miami-Dade, and she's on the board of Planned Parenthood South, East, and North Florida. She is a Latina here from Miami and a first-generation college graduate. She is dedicated to improving the health and prosperity of the community, as shown through her work as an oncology nurse, a school health nurse in Title I schools, and a nurse at Planned Parenthood, as well as a senior health educator at the Florida Department of Health. She has a passion for community organizing and has facilitated Catalyst Miami's CLEAR program on climate resilience, advocated for a myriad of women's rights issues at the state and national levels. She has conducted research on health disparities, worked on immigration policy reform, and she has canvassed for Zika education and voter registration, and empowered youth leaders on topics ranging from sexual health to rebelling against big tobacco.
Hey everybody, glad to be here.
Last but most definitely not least, I would like to introduce Ms. Daniella Pierre. Ms. Pierre, who's not with us right now, but will be joining soon, is the president of the Miami-Dade Branch of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. As a freedom fighter of the NAACP, the nation's oldest and boldest civil rights organization, she has led many initiatives for affordable housing, home ownership, and equitable development. Ms. Pierre has also served as an active member of the Miami-Dade Branch of NAACP since 2011. She is a graduate of the NAACP's National Leadership Training Program, Next Gen, and former branch president. Ms. Pierre serves for the greater good because she's a firm believer that all individuals should have equal rights without discrimination. Thank you all for being here with us today.
And just a note to the viewers of this webinar, please feel free to type questions in the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen at any time. We will leave time at the end of this webinar for questions that you guys put into the Q&A window, so feel free to come up with whatever pops into your mind. We'll also be categorizing today's discussion into 3 main sections, mainly first discussing career journeys, then achievements, and lastly, which is probably the most important, the ideas for the future and for improvement.
All right, let's begin. Could each panelist please give about a minute of your thoughts on what feminism means to you? Let's go on the order of Representative Joseph, Ms. Skoko Rodriguez, and then Ms. Daniella Pierre. Hopefully she'll join in time.
Right. So feminism means to me just that men and women are treated equally. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. Whether we're talking about in a social context, in terms of rights, that we're treated equally. So that's my short answer to your very simple question.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but I really echo Representative Joseph's definition. It's really just striving for equality of the genders in all ways, shapes, and forms, and that's what we're all fighting for.
Thank you. So kind of on that bridge, sometimes it takes a while to start learning about all these different concepts, and both of you have done so much in your process of learning about not just supporting women's rights, but also in your careers. So I'd love to ask you each if you could briefly elaborate on your career journey. In other words, like, how did you get to the position that you are both in today? And we could start with Representative Joseph and then Ms. Rodriguez.
All right, sorry where I am. I showed you guys at the beginning, we're in the middle of like a reception with the whole Democratic caucus. So the question was, how did I get to where I am? Is that the question? All right.
Yes, that's the question.
Okay, so as a representative, I guess, so in high school, one of your teachers, some of you have her, Dr. Keitha Lawrence Burnett was a teacher of mine when I was at Dash, Design and Architecture Senior High. And while I was at Dash, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So, I come from an immigrant background, born in Haiti, and there are only a few acceptable professions: doctor, lawyer, engineer, maybe nurse, maybe professor, right? Like that's it. Nothing else counts. So I opted for lawyer, and I went and volunteered through an internship program at the Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office. And I had a horrible time because this was back in the days of the crack cocaine epidemic, and a lot of people were going to jail that just needed medical attention. And I thought our criminal justice system sucked, and I didn't want any part of it. Now, we see a very different response now with the opioid epidemic, but at that time, I had written off being a lawyer. Fast forward, go to college, Yale undergrad. While I'm at Yale, I had the opportunity to intern for one of the congressmen in Florida. And that was a great experience. And then they liked me so much, they invited me to go work on Capitol Hill over the summer. So I did that. And I went, and I didn't like that either. I was like, this is not how our democracy is supposed to work. I was so disillusioned. I was like, people don't even know what's in their bills. Lobbyists are running things. And not all lobbyists are bad. Some lobbyists lobby for issues that are important to us, right? But a lot of the special interests were controlling things that were not necessarily for the people. And I had written that off too. I was like, yeah, I don't want any part of this either. fast forward, graduate from college, I had the opportunity to intern with President Jimmy Carter in Atlanta. So not while he was president, this is at the Carter Center, his nonprofit, thereafter, because I'm not that old. Because when I say that, people are like, you're that old? No, I'm not that old. But anyway, we were focusing on Latin America, the Caribbean, and West Africa. And while we were there, I'll say that he restored my faith in public service and what a public servant could be. Somebody who's actually advocating for the people, selfless, all that good stuff. So fast forward, I still don't want to be a politician, mind you, just going about my business. Then when I realized I could do that, I figured I would do this program in The Hague, in the Netherlands, on mediation and conflict resolution. And then all my mentors were like, listen, you're passionate about human rights and civil rights. You really need to consider law school. So I sucked it up and went to law school, even though I said I didn't want to be a lawyer. But I realized I could be a better advocate by getting that training and that skill set through law school. So I did that. Went on to work with lots of organizations, including the NAACP, the Civil Rights Committee, the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the UNHCR, working with refugees abroad. So I did a lot of stuff abroad and here. So if you're curious to know more of those details of my background, just go to my website, dotiejoseph.com. That's Dotie with one T, like you see it right there. But once I did that, I realized, I was really good at being a lawyer. So we would litigate class actions, some employment discrimination, went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and I unapologetically came back home to serve. And when I came home, people kept asking me to run for office. And my answer was always, heck no, for a number of reasons. But without getting into all of that part, I will just say that what turned the tide for that second change, so the first change was lawyer. I said I didn't want to, and then I became one. But in terms of being a public servant, there were some things I didn't like, but what shifted it for me was at the time I was serving as an attorney for a municipality. In that role, my role is to give the city commission the legal parameters of what they could and could not do. And I, because it's me, took the extra step and said, hey, here's the impact on the community. But at the end of the day, whether it was a good decision, bad decision, corrupt, not corrupt, it was their vote to make, not mine. And between them and the guy who held this seat that I currently hold before me, they used to let our community down. And I got tired of begging people to do the right thing and decided to just try to claim a seat at the table to get it right myself. So there you go.
Thank you. That's quite a journey. It's really cool to see how much your ideas of what you wanted to be and what you ended up becoming, how that difference really became something so beautiful and translated into such amazing work. Miss Rodriguez, would you also like to tell us about, how you got to the position that you're in today?
Sure, yeah. So I started kind of similarly to Representative Joseph. I went to New World downtown. We're kind of rivals. So I went to New World. I loved everything to do with theater and writing and playwriting in specific. And I was just super focused on working in film and television. I got my bachelor's in fine arts from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. I worked in New York for a while in film and television. I did cool stuff like work on the Colbert Report and Martha Stewart show and stuff like that. And then I met my partner, who I'm now married to, and he needed to get a stem cell transplant. So everything kind of paused. We moved to Chicago together for him to get this experimental trial. And we lived in a hospital together for about 3 months. And it changed my outlook. Immediately when I returned to Miami, I registered for prerequisites to become a nurse. And then I went to University of Miami's nursing program. I did oncology nursing and Title I nursing and school health. And then I always didn't feel like I was quite fitting in or having the impact that I wanted. And I had this incredible mentor that taught me a lot about research and public health. So I moved to Australia for a bit and I did an NIH grant on health disparities in certain populations, and I got to learn a lot about public health. And so now my great party trick is that you can come up with absolutely any problem in our society, and I will explain to you why it is related to health and public health. It is just the thing that drives me. So once I did that research, I started working in public health, in Planned Parenthood as an abortion care nurse. I providing reproductive health services. And then I worked at the Florida Department of Health. I got my master's in public health at Johns Hopkins. I started getting very involved in politics and policy, and seeing how health and policy are really inextricably intertwined, and all of those different touch points that I wanted to have an effect on to improve the lives of women. So that's sort of how I came to this point now. The marriage of politics and organizing is the League of Women Voters hat, and the health and health policy side is what informed my way to get to the Commission for Women. And thank you so much for having me today.
Wow, what truly interesting career journeys. Who would have thought that there are just so many different steps to take to get to where people are now? So thank you for both for sharing those stories. So now we would like to know, how have your ideas about feminism changed over the course of your career? So we know you both gave very similar, or rather the same definition of what you believe feminism is, but did that change over the years, and how does your career influence that? Oh, and either one of you just jump in at any time, like this is a discussion. So.
I would say that my views of feminism have changed a lot. As you learn, as you age, you just learn a lot. You think back on the mistakes that you made, or your ideas that have really changed and evolved, and that's okay. When I was 20, I would say that I don't know if I would have considered myself a feminist. And I went to college, I took some women's studies classes and things like that. And I started to read a lot of feminist theory, and you kind of take and internalize certain parts of it and leave other parts of it. There's just a lot of growth to be had. And I think perfect is the enemy of the good. We're all gonna feel like we have to grow and we aren't there yet, but we really need to just try our hardest at where we are and meeting people where we are and where they are. So, I'm gonna tell you, in 4 years, you're gonna be embarrassed about the things you posted and wrote and thought, and that's part of it.
So I'll add that, yeah, it's changed over time. It changes sometimes within a year. And a lot of that has to do with different books that I read. Growing up, you hear feminism and it means different things. And if you add a cultural element to that, some Black women don't identify with it because they think it's a white women's movement. Or, there's socioeconomic differences. Like some people, I don't have time to be worried about that stuff. I'm just trying to pay the bills. And you've seen this in the feminist movement over time, where it's been whether more inclusive or less inclusive of, minority groups within that group. But when we think about even just the move to get the right to vote, there was a time where the folks had to decide, are we going to push for women to get the right to vote, or are we going to push for Black people to get the right to vote? Now, if you're somebody that stands at the intersection of both of those identity markers like me, you need both of them to be able to vote, right? So there were times where, unfortunately, the feminist movement aligned, or it's the suffragist movement, I should say, so not necessarily the feminist movement, the suffragist movement aligned, quite frankly, with racists, so that they could push their agenda forward in an effort to align with the power structure that they thought was going to get them there. And we all know how that turned out. Didn't work out too well. But the point is, once we realize that we're standing in solidarity for different things to realize what equality is, whether we're talking about equality based on sex, equality based on socioeconomic status, national origin, any of those things, we want to be treating people equally. So as you understand that and the larger context of different things, and different books kind of expose you to what that is, it means different things. So, I'll just talk about something in a more practical sense, dating, right? What does it mean if you're a feminist and you're dating? Does that mean you pick up the check? Does that mean he pays the bill? Does it mean you go Dutch? What does that mean for you? Does it mean you don't like dudes opening the door? Listen, for me, I'm a feminist, but I appreciate, being treated like a woman. And I appreciate gentlemen offering the benefit of chivalry. I like it when a dude makes the effort to open the door. Like those little things. So for some people, in their construct of what feminism is, there's no room for femininity. In my construct of what feminism is, I can still be a woman, and they can still be a man, but we treat each other equally. His opinion is not more or less valuable than mine. What I have to offer is not more or less valuable than his. Now, granted, we each might have our areas of expertise, and as a team, whatever your team looks like, if it's a male-female team, a woman-woman team, whatever your team looks like, you figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and where you can complement each other. But I reject the patriarchal notion of he's the head automatically just because he's a dude. So there you go.
I love that answer, Representative Joseph. And I especially love it because I can recognize that you're a feminist and I'm a feminist, but our feminism might be different. Like I am particularly interested in like breaking down the idea of gender as a construct, and that idea of really removing gender from a conversation, and that's clearly a different form of feminism, but we are still striving for the same thing and fighting together on the same side.
Well, both of you made really great points. I thought it was super interesting, or how both of you mentioned that you used books to be able to like further educate yourselves. So first part of this question would be what like feminist literature would you recommend to our audience? And then as a follow-up on some of the points that Representative Joseph made, how do the double standards that come along with both race and gender affect like the way you work, or like how you operate in different spaces?
So on that first point about reading recommendations, we could be here all day, I'm sure, between the two of us, but I really think it's very useful to read maybe outdated sources of feminism. So things like The Yellow Wallpaper, which I love, Virginia Woolf, some things that really started feminism, but today we see really left a lot of people out of the feminist conversation. And I would say some of my favorite feminist texts of today are the more radicalized feminism that is inclusionary and thinks about who was not at the table and centers their voices. So for example, Audre Lorde and folks like that, I really think that is the epitome of what I believe feminism to be today. And then when you look at it even now, more currently, I really love the reading folks like oh, I'm sorry, I just completely blanked out. But I really love reading, for example, Roxane Gay and other feminists that really are broadening our perspective of what feminism means.
So I will add to that, there's some classics, anything by Gloria Steinem, all of those kinds of things. Some of the foremothers of the movements, whether we're talking about the ERA, which is the Equal Rights Amendment, of which I am a prime sponsor and have been every year since I've been in the House of Representatives. Any of those books, and you can just Google them. But in addition to some of the more contemporary ones and not so contemporary ones, I think one of my favorite ones that I've read, which talks a lot about the intersectional issues beyond just feminism, but has obviously a heavy part of feminism, is one by Angela Davis called Women, Race, and Class. that is a must. There are several other ones. I think there's one called We Can All Be Feminists, which is edited by Eric Udori. And I think those are the two that, you know, if I were to actually, Gloria Steinem and the Angela Davis book, The Women, Race, and Class. Those would be like your two must reads. There are several more. And, you know, if you have a good list, I'd recommend maybe just putting together a little book club and going over those. Because it's one thing to read it by yourself, but it's another thing to dissect it within a group of women. So, yeah. Olivia, I think you were saying something, but you're on mute.
I was saying that, well, I was thinking Gloria Steinem has always been one of my biggest role models and really taught me what feminism is. I always recommend The Feminine Mystique. It's kind of like the Bible of feminism, as people call it. And I think that's a great way to understand the Equal Rights Amendment. It's a great way to understand different aspects of our everyday life and our society that have contributed to putting down the gender, putting down women unknowingly, unconsciously, and things that we should begin to understand and address. So I was just commenting on that shared, I guess, idolism of Gloria Steinem.
And I think it's always useful to see where a movement started to see where it needs to go. So it is very useful to look at those first texts, like The Second Sex by de Beauvoir, which we can talk about a lot of the problems with a text like that, but it's important to see texts like that so you can move forward into the future and see why we're talking about what we're talking about now, with trans rights being part of feminism and intersectionality, like the representative mentioned, of race, class, and gender. And then I think I would also encourage everybody to explore fiction as well as nonfiction reads, like The Bell Jar and things like that. They're, you know, to really expand your view of feminism.
Olivia, you just made a really fantastic point about role models and how Gloria Steinem is one of yours. So I'd like to take this time to now dive into a question on mentorship. So how important is mentorship to you all? And did you have a mentor or idol who inspired you to become the woman who you are today?
So I don't know that I had a mentor in the traditional sense. I had lots of mentors, mentor-ish people. And there's a difference between mentors and sponsors and, you know, encouragers. They're not necessarily the same, but that's getting into the weeds in terms of, you know, corporate definitions. Some people mentor you, some people just make sure a door is open to you, or that your name is spoken in certain rooms that are relevant, right? But I think it's all, whenever there's somebody, so when thinking about mentorship, one concept I encourage people to think about is what is it that you want to do? What is it that you're thinking about doing? So you might have something that you're passionate about and you definitely want to do, or it might be something that you're not sure that you're passionate about, you're kind of interested in it, you want to explore it some more, right? One you're committed, one you're not necessarily committed, and that's, either one is okay, right? And think about who's at the top of their game in that, and whatever that field is, and whatever that activity is, and then see if you can track down that person or someone like that person to either pick their brain about certain things, get some experience, you know, volunteer. So if it's the latter category where you're not sure and you want to explore it, volunteer. Look for internship opportunities, fellowship opportunities. That way you can start to get a real flavor of, is this something that you want to do? From my internship at the public defender's office, which I talked about earlier, I decided that I wasn't going to be a public defender. From my experience as a judicial law clerk, I already knew I couldn't be a prosecutor because some people, because here's the thing, for me with criminal law, some people need to be in jail. And then some people need to not be in jail. And you don't always have that discretion to push for one way or the other, right? So knowing those things about yourself and just getting that experience, all of those experiences add up. All of the experiences I've had, positive and negative, have helped me be successful wherever I am, and particularly where I am right now, whether it's my artistic background with design and social media and blah, 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 or with, you know, my experiences at Yale, my experiences abroad. I can bring a wealth of knowledge to the table in any sphere based on that. So a lot of it is, so let's talk about where you are in high school. So sometimes your mentor might just be your teacher, somebody that encourages you, believes in you, and all of that stuff, and connects you with other people. Part of that is networking. But one thing I would caution you is not just go up to somebody and be like, hey, will you be my mentor? No, like it's just, I liken that to a marriage. You don't meet somebody the first time and propose, right? You go out to lunch, you do something. And if it looks like you guys are vibing and you might want this person to actually be your mentor, this is more along the first lines. This is something you want to pursue, whatever field they're in, and they can offer you some guidance and knowledge in that field. That's when it makes sense to move forward on that front. And it has to be a mutual thing. But realize somebody can be your mentor without officially being your mentor. Just like you can date people without being officially married. You might not want to keep dating them. It's okay. That might be a good period for that time. So there you go.
Yeah, I think I agree. A little earlier in my career, and I mean, I still feel like I'm very early in my career, but a little earlier in my career, I was like looking around like, oh, everybody's talking about get a mentor. Where's my mentor? And I think it's so much more organic than that, because you'll look around and be like, oh, that person's always pushing me. That person's always telling me like the real deals. Everybody, you don't need this one person who's always your go-to. You have all of these different facets of yourself. So you need all of these different facets of mentors. And I would say they happen organically a lot. Somebody who's a decade forward or more forward than you in your career, they want to give back. They want to elevate you in the way someone elevated them, or maybe didn't elevate them, so they want to give back. So it really is an organic kind of process. And if you are putting in work in whatever you're trying to do, the people who are naturally mentors, your teachers, your bosses, your supervisors, they want to help you out. And if you see somebody who you're not connected to yet, social media is so incredible. See where they're going, see where they're going to be at, see panels that they're going to talk at, and shoot them an email. People are so much more accessible now than even they were 10 years ago. So I would take advantage of that. And especially while you're so young, everybody's going to really feel very proud and like they really owe you something to boost you up at this age.
And let me just throw in one more thing, because people talk about stuff generically, and you might have some questions that don't necessarily come up, or something is triggered by while we're talking about mentors or whatever. I try to make myself accessible. Now we're in session. My turnaround time is usually within 24 hours, but we're in session, so it might take me a little bit, but I will eventually get back to you. Olivia knows. So the best way to reach out to me and get me directly is to DM me on Instagram. I respond to my own DMs on IG, and it's just Dotie Joseph. That simple. So if there's something you're not comfortable talking about or asking about here in this forum, feel free to reach out to me. I will let you know how to schedule an appointment, for a phone call, and we can chat a little bit more. Because there are lots of things that you just don't even know you want to ask, and sometimes you just want to pick somebody's brain. That's okay. And there are always opportunities for different volunteer things, in the office, whether it's legislative or over the summer. So that might be an opportunity too. Let's say you're thinking about politics, or you're thinking about just legislative stuff, or there's a particular policy issue that you're passionate about, whether it's climate change, gender equality, any of those things. Chances are there's some level of it that touches either with my office or even with the League of Women Voters. So, reach out to either. I'm going to volunteer Monica. You can reach out to her too. Because
yes,
I'm a fan of the League, and they do great things. So, and the League of Women Voters, like, they rock. So just putting that out there. Carry on.
Yes, please reach out to us. It's at LWV Miami-Dade on Instagram, on social media. If you want to reach out to me personally, it's at Loco for Skoko. So yeah, I'd love to hear from any of you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for extending that invitation and that opportunity. I know that we have some very dedicated girls within Feminism Explained that will be very happy. So please do expect some contacts. We're very happy about
I
that.
also quickly want to add, I think that it's great having this whole community and showing girls that everyone is accessible, like you guys mentioned, and that women are here to help women, empower women. I really believe that working together will be the final straw in allowing all of these gender issues to come to light and we can find solutions as a community, because we do make up 49% of the population. Like, we are a minority by 1%. We are a great amount of people, and working together as a team is really what I think it's a very important message to address these issues. So I'll let my moderators carry on.
Thank you. Talking on that note of accessibility, both of you have found different ways to give access, whether it's access to voting, access to housing. And I know that Ms. Rodriguez had mentioned that you have experience in access to healthcare. So I wanted to ask you, this is also a bit personal because I'm highly interested in becoming a healthcare worker, but you having experience as a healthcare professional, how has that experience contributed to the way that you tackle your career and the gender issues that you see?
I would not trade anything for being a frontline healthcare worker. It really teaches you about struggles that everyday people go through and how difficult extenuating factors are that have nothing to do with the people's health, but rather what our politicians think is good for people, and legislation and difficulty accessing healthcare. That's really what pushed me towards public health as well. I was seeing so many patients come in with difficulties that were far outside of the realm of what a nurse or a doctor can do. And so that's why I'm really interested in the intersections of policy and health and joining those. And I would love to speak with you more offline about that, Elizabeth, if that's something you're really interested in. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. I'd love to talk to you about that sometime. In terms of gender inequality within the healthcare system, is there anything that you've noticed? I know now with COVID-19, everyone's talking about healthcare. And before we jump on that, just wanted to say a very warm welcome to Miss Daniella Pierre. Thank you so much for coming. She's late, but she's here, and we're so happy to have you. So we did introduce you already, but if you'd like to give us a few words about maybe what feminism means to you, we're so happy to have you and very, very grateful.
Good evening, everyone. Please pardon my tardiness. I was here in the city of Miami Gardens with their commission meeting. Again, my name is Daniella Pierre, and I'm very pleased and proud to be a part of this event on this evening to speak about women and our advancement and our progress and how we unite to collectively move forward. So I'm so grateful to be a part of the conversation. It's very important. I salute everyone that's a part of this that has made it possible tonight to be together. It's our time, you know, in terms of being a woman. We continue to do all we can to shatter the glass ceiling, right? For many, many years, we've tried to do so, but this is our moment. This is our time, and we will continue to have as many wins as we've had, as long as we continue to work together, empower one another, and work together on issues that collectively advance us. So I'm all about women empowerment. I'm all about seeing women move forward. I'm all about advancing our agenda, getting our fair pay, pay equity. All of that is so very important, along with having our rights to vote, being able to climb the career ladder, and being able to, balance it all. We have to be able to balance it as we continue to work in such an unjust society. So thank you for allowing me to partake in this very important conversation on this evening. Thank you so much.
Yes, Ms. Pierre, we cannot tell you how overjoyed, how excited we are to have you here with us now, as well as the other panelists. But it's great to see you here, here and now. So, you touched on a really interesting point earlier, which was that of progress. So growth mindset is often tied to progress. So how important is growth mindset to you all? And does having a growth mindset allow you to better deal with biases and inequalities in the workplace?
I would say having an open mind, a mind that's able to work with all facets of your workplace, team building, working together is very important because by doing so, it allows us to learn more about one another, learn more about our culture, and different dynamics that it takes to make us all work. That's very important with having that type of mindset, being open mind. We don't want to, have a mindset that's, just, closed. We have to be open to learning about new things, working together to find out new ways to make things work. All that is very important, no matter what workplace, workspace, or what career. That matters across the board, having that mindset. And when you do have that mindset, it allows you to see new possibilities, new opportunities, and it expands the horizon of where we're all trying to get to, or at least find a common goal in how we get there together.
When I think about growth mindset, I think about one of the most dangerous phrases in the English language. That's just the way it's always been. I just think that there are so many groups that operate under that assumption. And I think that myself and Representative Joseph's creative backgrounds really help to inform us to think about problems and structures of our systems and how those can be rebooted and transformed to serve everyone in a better way. And so every time I approach a problem, I think about how has this always been done, and should it be done that way, and how can we change it?
All right, ladies. So I'm gonna have to hop off soon. I didn't catch the last question, but if you had to ask me one last question, what might it be?
I'm going to take the reins on this one because I have a specific question that I'm very interested in hearing about. I am a big advocate for the ERA. I have always admired the document as something that should have passed a long time ago. And there's an issue, and the issue is people are ignoring this document. But there's a lot of talk that by ratifying the ERA, it would be unconstitutional because the date has already expired. So I was wondering what you are doing as a representative, as you said that you're advocating for the ERA. What will we need to do to get to Florida ratifying the ERA? And is it possible that we can get it ratified across the nation?
So let's talk about what ratification is and why it matters. So for those who don't know, the Equal Rights Amendment would be an amendment to the Constitution to declare that men and women are equal under the law. In order for that to happen, a certain number of states need to ratify it. Now, the Constitution itself does not have a time limit by which that needs to happen. It just says a certain number of states needs to ratify it. For those who don't know, way back in the day, a good number of states ratified it, but just shy of the number needed to make it a constitutional amendment. There was a revived movement, and as of last year, Virginia became the last state required to go ahead and ratify the ERA. However, for whatever reason, Republicans have got it in their mind that this is something that they should be against. And I don't understand why, because when I say Republicans, not actual people Republicans, I'm talking about Republicans in leadership, which are different than Republican regular people. Because regular people, Americans, if you do the polling, over 90% of all Americans support it. Over 90% of, actually over 95% of Republicans, over like 90 something percent of no party affiliate folks, and then over 97% of Democrats, because we just tend to get it a little bit quicker. Not just kidding. Actually just being serious. But so the point is, so I could be partisan, they can't be partisan. But the point there is, constitutionally, there is no parameter from which that you need to do it by. However, for the ERA, whoever had put a deadline by which it needed to happen, it didn't happen by the deadline. But there is precedent where other amendments have passed that did not do it within a certain time period. One didn't pass until 100 years later, and that's okay, because our Constitution allows for that. So there are arguments on both sides, but I think the strongest arguments are in favor of being able to get it done. So now it's going to be up to the Congress to pass legislation, and I believe legislation has either already passed the House of Representatives or it's been proposed to make sure that that can happen. So that's there. Now, bringing it back to Florida, I don't know that Florida is going to be one of the states to ratify it in the foreseeable future, because Republican leadership has, for whatever reason, decided this is something they're not for. And it was particularly frustrating last year because even Republican women came out in support. And the moment they did that, Republican leadership came out in opposition. So I'm just going to leave that right there. In Florida, we're operating in kind of like this Stockholm thing where Republicans don't really have the liberty to vote how they want to vote. They vote the way that they're told. And that's the reality of how we're working right now in the House. And a little less so in the Senate, but that's where it is at the state level. So I'm going to continue advocating for it, but quite frankly, even if Florida doesn't get on board, we don't need Florida anymore. It would have been nice to be a part of that positive side of history, but you know, sometimes that's how it goes down. All right. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm coming.
Thank you so much, Representative Joseph. It was an honor.
Let me introduce you to somebody before we go.
Oh, it's NAACP.
Wait. So this is Feminists Explained. This is the leader in the House. This is the Democratic House leader, Leader DuBose, Bobby DuBose. These are some young ladies. It's being broadcast as well. She is president of the Miami League of Women Voters. Down there is the president of the Miami NAACP. And these lovely ladies are all in high school. Well, not all, most of them are in high school.
All in high school.
Okay, all in high school. And we're talking about feminism and equal rights amendment.
I support women. I'm NAACP proud. Listen, I have kids in high school. I cover all of this. I'm here for it. I will always support. And listen, this right here is a rock star. She is a rock star for day one. And I call her 305 because she will come through with her Georgetown Yale. But she sometimes be like, Brother Joseph, I need a little 305. We got to put these folks in check. And she can deliver that as well.
Awesome.
Thank you both so much. It was an honor meeting you.
Thank you. Have a great night, ladies.
Pleasure's all mine.
Rock.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to transition to the questions asked in the Q&A. I'm going to bring in Christina and Athena from our staff to ask those questions. And I'm also going to repeat, if anyone has any questions from the attendees, please ask it in the Q&A box, which is found on the bottom of your screen. You can send them anonymously or with your name. Doesn't matter, whichever you feel more comfortable with. So I'm going to bring them in and they're going to start administering the questions, as well as questions we had from a Google form sheet that we put out on our social media. So with that, sorry, now it's the technology aspect of this.
I want to congratulate you all on a really well-run event, and thank you all for all the time and energy you put into this.
Thank you so much for coming. So thank you all for your thoughtful responses for the last 20 minutes. I don't know if we're gonna cut it off early, but we will be administering questions from the attendees. So if anyone has questions that they haven't already put in the Q&A, now would be the time to drop it in there. And then we'll start with the ones that we already have. So Athena, do you wanna start with the first one?
Yeah, Miss Vegas asked, what challenges have you met over the course of your career that have impacted your approach to your career path?
What challenges have I met? I honestly think that one of the biggest challenges has been myself. A lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of thinking, well, in 5 years, I will be ready for that. Or after I get this certain degree or learn more about this, I'll be ready. And obviously to a certain degree, that's true, but it definitely impairs your progress when you don't let yourself really see your full potential. So I think that's been a big thing that I've had to overcome, as well as some sort of like familial and generational problems. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Before I went to college, I didn't know what a master's degree was. I didn't I didn't understand that concept. So sort of having to teach myself about higher education and how certain people operate in certain spaces was certainly a challenge for me to get over.
I'm going to quickly say Miss Pierre is having some technical issues, but she'll be back as soon as she can.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Miss Maria Martin. So why do you think that feminism has such a negative impact, and I think she's meant connotation, when it is only the idea that we are women? Why do we not call it manism?
I'm sorry, you all are hearing a lot from just me. But I think that feminism has such negative connotations because our society is built on patriarchal ideals and uplifting men at the expense of women, and particularly Black and Brown people. So I think that's a very difficult concept to dismantle when it has been built into each of us. And I mean, even those of us who feel very educated and really internalize feminism, there's a lot of work to be done regarding dismantling beauty standards, dismantling the idea of an ideal body size and shape. There's just so many layers to the patriarchal society that's been built to hold women down. And like I said, hold down particularly people who are Black and Brown. So I think it is not fair to put that on an individual to do all of that work. We really have to raise the bar on a societal level as well.
Yeah, I love that response. An anonymous attendee has asked, what is the beauty of feminism?
Miss Pierre, if you'd like to, I don't know if you're still here. We love hearing from Monica, with Miss Skoko Rodriguez. She's great. Please.
You all can call me Monica, don't worry. I think the beauty of feminism is being able to step into your power. I think that a lot of growing up as a woman is being told what you can or cannot do, or how you should present or act. So I think really embodying feminism is allowing yourself to be and feel and act in the way that feels organic and right to you personally, rather than society.
I love that response. Thank you so much. Okay. So the next question is from
I would definitely.
Sorry, continue.
I don't know if you. Oh, I would agree with what Monica just said. Feminism is, being about who you are, right? No matter where you go or who you with. It's you. You bring your whole self to whatever you're doing, and you don't hold back. It's a collective power of women working together to advance us all. And I believe once women are advanced, the whole world will be a better place. So, that's what I look at it when I'm thinking about feminism. It's all about just, being who you are, not afraid, boldly, exuding that confidence, and, championing the issues that impact us all, because, women issues impact everyone. But it takes, that powerful and bold, courageous woman to stand up and, advocate for the change and be that change and be that woman.
And it can be scary, and people might think differently of you, and that's their problem. That's their thing that they need to catch up with. I remember I was at a local political meeting, and we were all seated at a long table, and a man got up and said, "Hey guys, I have to go. It was great seeing you." And he proceeded to shake the hands of all of the men seated at our table, and he did not acknowledge me. So as he walked away, I said, "Hi everyone, can we just talk about what just happened and how misogynist that was?" And people were shocked. They were shocked that you would call that out, in the same way that we should be calling out racism and other problems in our society. We shouldn't have to sit with that discomfort. We should have to share that discomfort that someone just caused. And so yeah, I think, like I said, feminism just feels very powerful, and like you are capable of more once you step into that power.
Ms. Pierre, do you have any specific encounters that have made you realize the effect of misogyny?
So many encounters. So many encounters. I've been in many spaces, many places, and many times, women are made to, feel invisible, like we're not even in the room. Oftentimes that happens. And it doesn't feel good. And I could agree, like, if you try to, advocate that, people speak to everyone, then people might look at you a certain way, or, that you're, trying to make trouble. But no, everyone deserves the right to, be spoken to, be addressed, respected. Stability matters. So that all that stuff plays a very important part with how we work together in our community, as well as working together on issues. Most of the time, some of the spaces I'm in, I may be the only woman, and then sometimes the only Black woman, right? So that's a whole different argument, a whole different fight, and that's a different comfort level, because I have to make certain that when I go in a space that I'm heard, right? And you want to be able to get your point across. And you also want to be able to let others know that, hey, I deserve to be in this space too. And sometimes that's a little hard to do, especially, being a Black woman and just being a woman overall, when you're in a space that's usually dominated by men. So that's usually a challenge, and you have to find a balance with, doing so that you can, get that respect that's due. So that's been a challenge for me along the way. And I'm seeing it more now, quite interestingly, in this pandemic. I've seen it a lot more now, and I'm not certain why, but we just got to continue to do what we can to let everyone know that we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're women, we rule, we rock, and it's our time. It's our time. We have to be able to step up and always say the book is lean in, and I say lead up. Lean in and lead up, and that takes a lot of courage to try to do that, especially again when spaces are typically dominated by men. So we have to, by us working together, that'll help us when we get into those spaces, that we can be able to effectuate change. So I'll stop with that.
And you mentioned that, there's another layer of you're a woman, but you're also a Black woman. And I can't emphasize enough for my white peers that this isn't a different conversation. It's the same conversation. So if you claim you're a feminist, but you're not standing up for your Black and brown feminists, then you need to collect your feminism. You need to figure it out. So I definitely want to bring that point home, to really realign everyone with what feminism means to some people and what it should mean to everyone. Because in the words of, no one is free until we're all free. So we want to make sure that we are standing up for everyone, not just the women who look like us.
And not just the women who are society accomplished. And I say that because, it takes everyone to make this world work, right? But it's usually society will try to box people in, and, those will be the people that, people kind of, celebrate or gravitate to. So when I say that we have to be able to, work with everyone and meet them where they are. And that's very, very important. We don't just want to work with those who are already society accomplished, or successful, but we also need to be able to pay it forward and work with women who are, desiring to get to that next level, desiring to finish high school, desiring to go to college, desiring to just move up one more level on their job, or, just something, that single mom. We have to be able to work with everyone, but work with them where they are. And sometimes that's a challenge for some, but as long as we continue to have those, growth mindset, open mind, that will allow us to be able to connect with women no matter where they are in this spectrum of life.
Thank you so much. So as our final question tonight, can you give us your ideas on where spaces surrounding feminism and gender equality will be in 5 years? And what can we do to be the change for the future?
Wow. So forward thinking and moving fast forward, let's see. Definitely see where, since everybody is, writing books and things of that nature, I'm encouraging people to, share your story, right? Those can be roadmaps for, the future generations. And also it shares and keeps history of what transpired and helps someone else along their journey. So consider, writing your book, sharing your story. There are a lot of ways that you can self-publish and, do, something on maybe YouTube or social media to get your story out there, because of the story inside of us all. So that's one way. I would also say that we need to, consider to bridge the gap in terms of those who are coming up now. So there is a divide when it comes to technology, but there's also a divide across generations. And I know we tend to look at generations, oh, we're the seniors, but we have those like millennials, X, Y, Z, I don't know, pick a letter, right? There's a gap there. So I think we have to find a way to bridge that gap so that we can all, get to whatever that level would be in the next 5 years, whether it's, really owning more real estate, or being, senator. We have to be able to, pull up those people in terms of the generational divide, so that they can aspire to get there too. Because we don't want it to stop when, we get there and they don't know how to get there. That's why your story sharing is so important. That's why, maybe putting something on YouTube, social media, so they can have ways to watch it and aspire to grow into it. Also, I would say working with those young mothers, I always, promote the Cope Center for Girls, for young girls who, are raising children. Mentorship is important, and it's definitely important to those who may be at risk. So I always say, find a way to connect them so that can bridge the gap there, so that we can excel and win. Those are some ways that I would recommend, but definitely start by sharing your story so that others can get inspired and also become the change agents that you all are.
I would say to just make sure that you are challenging everything. I don't know if you have some teachers on here that would maybe push back to that, but I would say to any social norm, anything that you experience daily, think about who is benefiting from this and who is benefiting from me thinking this way, and who is losing from me thinking of things this way. And really always think about how you can be challenging the status quo, and really let yourself believe that you can do more and be more. I think people who work in policy and politics, like I do, it's very easy to get disillusioned and think nothing can change. Things have stayed the same. But when I look back at even the last, 15 years, I grew up in an incredibly homophobic time, right? The LGBTQ rights were constantly being talked about. I was in college when finally LGBTQ folks were given the right to be married. And when I think about that, I really am inspired by the opportunity for progress. We're seeing that now with trans rights and that fight. So I would say to don't give up hope. Don't become a misanthrope just yet.
With that, we're going to conclude the panel. We went over by 8 minutes, but I'm very grateful for everyone here. So thank you for everyone who is watching. Your contribution and participation in this panel was greatly appreciated. We hope you learned something about the issues women face today, and will continue to educate yourself by reading Feminism Explained. Thank you to my moderators for keeping a very lively and thought-provoking conversation. And we are so fortunate. Oh, I'm sorry. Feminism Explained would like to especially thank the panelists for giving us their perspective on gender inequalities and how they plan to address it in their careers. We are so fortunate to have these three impressive women, as well as Ms. Dotie Joseph, who had to leave a little earlier, as panelists for our debut panel. We hope this panel opened your eyes to global issues that are being ignored, and we hope you continue the conversation. We are at the forefront of this movement, and we will make a change for the betterment of our sex. Thank you, good night, and God bless you all.